Hi, this is Milana, and this is a very special video for me because I'm celebrating my 20th anniversary in the United States. For this celebration, I wanted to do something special, something I've never done before. I wanted to give you massive inspiration to pursue your dreams no matter what obstacles are in your way. I assembled some of the most well-known coaches and entrepreneurs to reveal their biggest business lessons and stories to inspire you to keep pursuing your business dreams no matter what. But first, I want to share my business story with you because I want you to know that if I can build a $500,000 business working 4 hours a day, then you can too. When I hear people telling me I make it look so easy or I was so lucky to have certain gifts or talents, I feel like saying, if you only knew. The truth is that I had none of the traits you would associate with a leader or an entrepreneur, much less of someone who would build a $500,000 a year business. From childhood all the way through high school, I was very introverted and private. I was even bullied for the most part of the grade school. From the age of 8, when I first started to study the piano, I think the only thing I lived for was music. I didn't have many friends or much of a social life until I got to music college at the age of 15. But before I finished it, Gorbachev came to power and allowed Russians to leave the USSR. My family applied, and 2 years later, I found myself in a new country with no connections, no income, and a very basic knowledge of English. Everything was new and overwhelming. Everywhere I went, I experienced culture shock. I remember how our family was given food stamps. We didn't even know what they were at the time and what they meant to people in this country. Within a year, I went to a community college to study music and continue my career path. College was really difficult. I had a heavy Russian accent and really struggled. Every time I asked a question in class, everyone would turn to look at me. I was embarrassed and tried to stay as quiet as possible. Though my English got better, I still felt out of place every day. I was in the land of the free and home of the brave, but definitely did not feel free or brave. After I had my first child, I had to make one of the most difficult decisions of my life. I decided to say goodbye to a career in music. My whole life up to this point was based on my love for music, but I just didn't see it happening here for me. I remember being so sad about this. I was sitting in my car after having just switched my major to business administration and crying. I was letting go of the biggest part of my life. It was part of me for almost 20 years. Music gave me confidence and work ethic and brought me my best friends. Music was something I breathed every minute of every day for my whole life. But I was in this new country now, starting completely from scratch, and financial security was more important to me than anything else at that time. And that was me coming to America. I finished college with a degree in business and computer programming. I went through a series of quick jobs and found what I considered a dream job, a web designer working for a newspaper company. During this time, I came across an ebook called Make Your Knowledge Sell by Ken Evoy. This ebook introduced me to the idea of turning my knowledge into a business. I went to work on applying what Ken taught. By then, I had my second child. So every night, I came home to a 1 and a 6-year-old, cooked dinner, played with them, and spent the rest of my nights writing my ebook. As I shared my excitement with my husband, he really did not believe it was possible to sell ebooks online. He would say, "Show me the money." But to be fair, I could see where he was coming from. Ebooks at that time were still new. I'd never done anything like this before, and we didn't know anyone else who did that. In fact, buying stuff online was very new. If I were in his shoes, I would have doubts too. But there was something about the idea of selling an ebook online that made me continue writing and learning about internet marketing. 3 months later, I finished it and was anxious to see what would happen next. I put it online and started promoting it by participating in forum discussions. Within a week, I made my first sale. I was on top of the world. Even though it was only $30, I felt like all my hard work had finally paid off. My information was valuable enough for someone to buy my ebook, and that moment allowed me to see that it was possible to turn my knowledge into income. I had no idea what to do next, but that one sale made me a believer and I became unstoppable. Making income online was now something I just had to pursue. As I got more experienced, I created 2 additional ebooks, and along with a couple of web design clients, I was now making an extra $1,000 a month. This small amount of money signified so much more to me than cash. This was my money. It was not money budgeted for household, food, children, or any other necessities. My paycheck and my husband's paycheck would disappear once we got it. We lived month to month. This money was extra. It meant so much to me that I never deposited it. I would always cash the checks so I could feel the money in my own hands. By now, my husband was a believer. It was serious money for us and we were really excited. Then I discovered something devastating. I found my very own ebooks being sold on eBay for $1. I remember feeling sick to my stomach. If it was so easy to steal my products, then what kind of future could I have online? I felt scared and discouraged and felt like the last 2 years of my work, hopes, and dreams just went down the drain. This meant that the income stream I worked so hard to create could be gone just like that. I was disappointed, but not defeated. At this time, I had a web design client. Her name was Nancy, and she was encouraging me to quit my job and go solo. She must have seen something in me that I could not see for myself. Every time she mentioned the idea, I thought, who, me? No, that's not for me. It seemed impossible. Looking back, I see why I had that idea. It was because I had no models in my life. Everyone I knew and everyone in my family had a job. Why would someone give up the security and predictability of a paycheck? They must be out of their mind. But the seed was planted, and I began imagining the possibility. What would it be like to wake up, kiss my 2 sweet little faces, put my son on a school bus, and spend the day playing with my 1-year-old on a blanket in the backyard? I saw several of my neighbors do that every day, and I wish that I didn't have to rush to work and see my kids only at night when I was too tired to play. Still, it seemed impossible. How could I let go of my dream job and $33,000 a year that provided such great stability in my life? I kept brushing the idea off until finally something happened. It's the moment that changed everything. It felt painful and difficult at the time, but I realized that if that didn't happen, I'd still be in the same situation today. What happened was that my wonderful babysitter could no longer keep my daughter while I was at work, and I was forced to look for new childcare. After a month of trying different centers and babysitters and watching my daughter get sick or neglected, I finally gave up. Dr. Laura's words from the radio show rang in my head. Why have children when you're going to send them to be raised by strangers? I was 28 years old. I had 2 small children. I saw less than 2 hours a day, and I just wanted to be a mom. One night in May of 2002, after picking my daughter up from another babysitter, I went home crying. I talked to my husband, and the next day gave my 2-week notice. Scared but excited, I went into my business full time. Now that I had the time, I dove into learning more about how to build my online sales. I started studying Dan Kennedy, and one of the things I quickly learned was the importance of building an expert status. After realizing that most of my clients were life and business coaches, I decided to create an association for coaches doing business online. I called it Association of Coaches and Consultants on the Web. My idea was to interview experts in business and use these interviews as the content for my association website. I didn't know whether it would work or if I would be successful, and had a lot of self-doubt at the time. I had no idea if people would join the association, but I put it out there and people started signing up. It turned out to be a really good move. I was able to meet several people that would later become my best joint venture partners. And in the process, I ended up getting invited to a mastermind group called Business Think Tank. At this mastermind group, I started meeting people whose names I only saw in my inbox. I was nervous, intimidated, and humbled. I even felt like I didn't belong there. This mastermind group made such an impact on me, I wanted to create my own. After running this idea by a friend of mine, I decided to invite every expert I interviewed in the past and hold a public mastermind, charging people to listen in. And the world's first telesummit was created. I basically modeled the seminars I wanted to go to but could not because it was so hard to travel. I was on fire. I created the schedules, the panel discussions, I wrote down the interview questions and announced my event. I was both nervous and excited. It was a gamble. Here I was, making moderate success with selling ebooks and building websites, about to assemble a group full of experts and leaders in the industry all in one place. How was I to do this? But at the same time, I just had this inspiration to follow through despite my own self-doubt. Keep in mind that at that time, I was still a newbie. I had no concept of what it was like to make it big. But when I put this telesummit together, I was not prepared for what was about to happen. When I opened registration, it was like the floodgates opened wide and orders just started pouring in. I was not prepared for what it was like to get a flood of orders and a flood of people calling me to give me money. The phone was ringing off the hook. I remember sitting in my car outside of my kids' karate class, getting a call from someone who wanted to sign up, and I would write down all the information on a pad in my car. I was thrilled at all these orders, but I remember that I was also really scared. What if they found out I worked from home? Or that I was a solopreneur? I only had one virtual assistant at that time. Or that I had no idea what I was doing. I felt a bit like a fraud, but I kept going forward. Above it all, I was so inspired by this idea. I couldn't believe the response. People were calling and emailing from all over the world. Eventually, I counted people from 11 countries. On the first day of the telesummit, I was so nervous I couldn't breathe. But once it started, I knew it was a huge success. There was so much energy on the line. The guest experts were teaching such quality material, it felt like a real live conference, except people were attending in their pajamas. My email was exploding with bravos and thank yous. At the end of it all, I had created my first six-figure year. It was like all the pieces of what I was learning came together in one explosion. What started as an intention to go back to work once my daughter started school ended up with something I never expected. My business and my life were at a new level now. By following my passion, by ignoring common sense and other people's criticism, I found myself in a new position. I was now unknown. My virtual conference put me on the map. People started coming to me, asking me to partner with them and to feature me, and my sales soared. It was a completely different kind of business now. I used to always think, what could I sell? Who would buy this? Why would they listen to me? Now, with my new experience and industry knowledge, I knew my products and programs would sell. From that point on, my coaching business has grown and developed, reaching $600,000 in sales in 2011, working just 4 to 5 hours a day from my home. So that's a bit of my story. It was no easy road to success. If I had to look for the key ingredients that allowed me to experience this level of success, it would come down to this. You may not believe in your abilities and what you're capable of. That's okay. As you can see from my story, you don't have to. But you do need to move forward and keep learning. I had many obstacles and many fears along the way, but I kept staying connected to my dream. So my question for you today is, what obstacles are you facing now? What is your biggest dream, and how are you staying connected to it in spite of these obstacles? Please share your thoughts below, and I look forward to reading your comments.